So I heard Battlefield Hardline has, despite recent release, already dropped below Battlefield 4 in population. Most reviews I've seen are bashing it pretty hard, and I've yet to see a positive one. Are the criticisms justified? Did a hate train make people judge the game harshly? Or does 4 just offer more content for the current price? It hasn't been long since my last Autopsy, since I recently did one on Titanfall. But if you would indulge me, I invite you on another journey as we explore the question of what happened to Hardline. Let us begin. When it comes to a Battlefield game, its selling point has always been multiplayer. Older games like Battlefield 2 didn't even have single player, aside from playing multiplayer maps with bots. Accordingly, I'd say the single player should probably have been cut to free resources for multiplayer improvements, since for a Battlefield game, it's the quality of the multiplayer that's going to sell it to the Battlefield audience. Combined arms battles and the quality thereof, and Hardline certainly seems to have needed it considering the severity of bugs. But also as a result of this, I can give the game a pass on theme. I don't mind if it's cops v robbers, if the gameplay is solid, so I think the common criticism that it's a bad game because theme is the product of a hate train. Could the opportunity have been taken to dive more into the cops theme and make a very different game? Sure, but the game should be fairly examined by Battlefield standards since that's what it's being sold as, and as a purchasing decision, it ultimately comes down to quality. And to the game's credit, Hardline's multiplayer has some noteworthy improvements, but also many problems, and for several types of players, these issues will unconditionally drive them away, so we have to begin the dissection with those. For starters, a competitive game shouldn't represent XP boost on the scoreboard. If you use a 200% boost, you're usually guaranteed the top score and MVP, unless someone else is also using one. It's displayed as if you accomplished 3 times the work rather than just awarding 3 times the cash. For competitive games, such a blunder in value representation is pretty abysmal and will turn off some people right away. On the subject of competition, it's difficult to distinguish between what's an exploit and what's an intended feature. I rapidly discovered several things I presumed to be unintended, such as the ability to rob vaults and blood money through ceilings, but I can't tell for sure because I'm given mixed signals. Another example, in the original 2014 beta, you could use a grappling hook to climb from the window washing lift up to the roof on the primary central skyscraper. This grapple position has been removed in the release version, but I can still grapple onto the roof from the same floors below if I jump carefully, or from the nearby roof. I even managed to create a newbie-friendly version that was hard to fall from by combining them with zip lines. But are these intended to be tricks for knowledgeable players, or are they exploits? Things like these are so prevalent the line is blurred and I don't really know. Now in fairness, those issues are subjective. If you can ignore the score representation and can adjust to the quirky mechanics, then neither will be a problem for you. However, things worsen competitively. Your character is regularly forced to loudly alert nearby enemies of your location when shooting, meleeing, being suppressed, etc. I now offer you footage of me tear-gassing 2 doorways and having an enemy flare which of the 2 he was coming through.
Goddamn tear gas!
I don't think that was fair, so for me this is a limitation to my enjoyment of the game. Even if you equip stealth training and a suppressor, this still happens. As a result, it makes stealthy play frustrating even if you're doing good, because it constantly reminds you you have to compensate for this handicap. Further worsening the problem, in Conquest the spawn system is so bad, enemies will spawn right in front of you while you're looking at them, or directly behind you. Fortunately, this isn't as much of a problem in other modes, but it's still significant. Now with those criticisms said, let's consider a positive note for a moment. One of the things Hardline did to differentiate from 3 and 4 was adopt a less restrictive unlock style, allowing you to purchase most weapons and equipment in the order you wanted. This allowed you to properly prepare a kit with equipment before playing it. This is helpful for new players and people who want to be useful, whereas 3 and 4 required you to grind classes for gear and weapons for attachments, with each attachment behind an arbitrary number of kills. In Hardline, you collect cash and spend it where you want. While you need to grind weapons to unlock attachment categories, they're unlocked at the same time per category rather than having individual values ascribed to each item. Most people, myself included, seem to feel this is an upgrade over 3 and 4, taking the game in the direction of 2 and 2142. However, the game doesn't seem to have the infrastructure for such a system, and it fell back on the 3 and 4 ways at very inconvenient times. Personally, I feel if a weapon is outclassed by another and has no purpose aside from grinding, then it may as well not be in the game. For this reason, I criticized Battlefield 4 in my previous videos, so I wasn't initially disturbed by a limitation of 8 or so submachine guns in Hardline, if those weapons were diverse and balanced. In 2014, there were only 4 assault rifles, but each was unique enough that if you killed an assault and took his kit, you wouldn't have advanced knowledge of which one you were likely to get, barring the faction starters, and I never heard a balancing complaint between them. However, the weapons in Hardline aren't balanced, at least not for mechanics. If you're playing police, you use the K-10 or you're handicapped, and to unlock a weapon cross-faction, you need 1,250 grinded kills, when you should have been allowed to invest in a weapon license to begin with, if that's what you wanted to spend your points on. Poor balance compounds the faction grinding issue because you can grind out the attachment categories for a weapon and then be unable to use it the next round, whereas if Hardline had fully embraced a free unlock style, that could have been avoided. Another malignancy affecting the game is the fact that a single mode, Hotwire, is the point farm mode and no other can compete. This was a well-established issue over a month before launch, and no actions were taken to address it. Point farming, again, brings up subjectivity, though. Some can overlook a point farm mode if gameplay is solid enough. Not everyone's going to mind the existence of a point farm mode, and some players can give it a pass if they get an enjoyable enough experience to compensate. However, there are more issues further straining price point value. While release stability hasn't been as bad as Battlefield 4, that doesn't magically grant value. For a full-price title with so few maps, some of them aren't well structured. Blood Money and Heist on certain maps are so small they may as well be Team Deathmatch, and have similar size to maps from Call of Duty 4. I still experience many crashes, and the game has a plethora of bugs, such as the chain gun zipline and exiting vehicles dropping you off cliffs when there's land nearby. There are also a number of class balance gripes, and I hear many complaints about operators, though the most obvious one to me would be that sabotage seems blatantly less useful than breaching charges, not to mention they're much more buggy, and I've even seen one become unkillable and render an enemy vehicle completely invulnerable from sabotage until it repositioned. It seems the question of what happened to Hardline can be summed up fairly easily. For each step forward the game took, the game was pulled back 3. For each attempt it made to go in the direction of mode diversity, or reach to the Battlefield 2 and 2142 routes, it seemed as if weights were strapped on to prevent the game from doing so, and the sheer severity of bugs, balance issues, and what may be considered exploits tells me the game needs at least 6 months before it's actually fit for release. It seems Hardline attempted to improve, but it was stifled each time it tried, under the perception that innovating into a different cop game was too risky, and taking older formulas that worked was also too risky, and as a result it became trapped in a purgatory where it could embrace neither. It's sad, but such is the nature of an autopsy. Thanks for watching, insert end of video pandering here, and I'll see you next time. Later, YouTube.